The dogs were the first to bark. Inside the wooden walls of Fort Mims, the midday sun beat down on the clearing with no breeze to carry it. Children played in the dust. Women churned butter, swept doorsteps, braided hair. Men sat half asleep in the shade of rough-hewn cabins, rifles leaning against walls. The fort's gate, heavy and meant to be guarded, was left wide open. There had been warnings. A scout had come just days earlier, breathless and afraid. He'd spoken of war drums, movement through the pine thickets, the Red Stick Creek warriors preparing something big. But Major Beasley, the fort's commanding officer, dismissed it. "We are well defended," he said. "Let them come." And they did. On the morning of August 30th, 1813, nearly 1,000 Red Stick warriors emerged silently from the woods, faces painted red and black, muskets in hand, tomahawks gleaming. They had surrounded the fort at dawn, waiting in total silence. Just after noon, they charged. The attack hit like lightning. The outer sentries were cut down before they could raise an alarm. Within seconds, warriors poured through the open gate, shouting war cries as startled men and women scrambled for weapons. The cabins turned to slaughterhouses. Inside the fort were more than 500 people, militia, settlers, enslaved families, and friendly Creeks who had allied with the Americans. They had sought safety behind the stockade, but Fort Mims was no fortress. It was a corral. The Red Sticks moved fast. Some settlers were killed in their doorways, others while trying to reach the central blockhouse. Screams echoed against the palisades. Horses trampled children as they broke loose from crude corrals. Blood mixed with the dust. A handful of defenders managed to rally inside the blockhouse, slamming the door shut as musket fire cracked against the walls. For a time, they held out. Women loaded rifles while boys carried powder. Outside, the Red Sticks looted cabins and set them alight, smoke curling up through the pine canopy. But the defenders were outnumbered and exhausted. Ammunition dwindled. Heat and smoke choked the blockhouse. And then came fire. Warriors piled dry brush against the outer walls and set it ablaze. The flames crawled upward. Inside, people screamed for air, clawing at floorboards, pressing soaked rags to the mouths of children. Some tried to break out, bursting through the side door in a last, desperate run, but the Red Sticks were waiting. None made it far. By sundown, the massacre was over. More than 250 settlers lay dead. Others, men, women, and children, were taken captive. The Red Sticks buried their own dead in shallow graves just outside the walls. Fort Mims smoldered for days. Vultures circled. The Alabama heat preserved the silence. For weeks afterward, recovery teams found bones scattered through the ruins. The dead had been hacked, shot, or burned alive. Some were barely recognizable. Others were never identified at all. The horror sent shock waves across the American South. Newspapers ran headlines in black ink. "Savages massacre hundreds at Fort Mims." Militia were raised in Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi. Settlers called for retribution, for blood, for war, and war came. The Fort Mims massacre lit the fuse for the Creek War, a brutal, spiraling conflict that would end in devastation for the Red Stick faction and the forced cession of millions of acres of Creek land. But the warriors who attacked that day weren't mindless killers. They were fighting for survival, for sovereignty, for a world that had been shrinking since the first log cabin was raised on their hunting grounds. The settlers saw it as a massacre. The Red Sticks saw it as resistance. History remembers it as the beginning of the end. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.